about 10 minutes for the actual presentation itself, and then we'll have a 2-minute question session. And go ahead.
My name is Anna Jala, and I did a study on the interpersonal predictors of weight control behavior in young men. Now, although bulimia and anorexia nervosa are probably the most heard of eating disorders, binge eating disorder is actually the most common. And because binge eaters eat a lot of food without compensating for it in any way, such as purging it, they are typically not thin, but in many cases they're overweight, in fact. In addition, although we think of eating disorders as characterized by a lot of restrictive behavior, there are tons and tons of different manifestations of disordered eating that people have heard less about. And while the rise in disordered eating has often been attributed to exposure to the media, it turns out this isn't the whole story. Researchers have found that the interpersonal relationships with people's friends, with their mothers and other family members are also pretty good predictors of how they treat their bodies in terms of weight and diet. For my study, I actually conducted 2 separate studies. In the first study, I predicted that people who rated their mothers or their friends as very preoccupied with weight and dieting would be more likely to engage in unhealthy and healthy weight control behaviors, would be more likely to binge eat, and would be more likely to be chronic dieters. In addition, I expected that women who scored very highly on objectified body consciousness, which is a construct related to disordered eating, would be more likely to engage in all of those unhealthy weight control behaviors. And third, I expected objectified body consciousness to be related to preoccupation with weight and dieting, as these are both, again, constructs related to disordered eating. And one exploratory hypothesis I had, I didn't have a particular hypothesis that there would necessarily be a difference, but I was wondering if people would rate their mothers and their friends differently on preoccupation with weight and dieting. It wasn't a link that I had seen discovered in the literature thus far. So for my study, I utilized Mechanical Turk, which is an online data collection service provided by Amazon.com. All of my participants took a survey. It was a between-subject design, meaning that everyone rated either their mother or their friend on preoccupation with weight and dieting, but not both. I controlled for BMI in all of my tests so that that wouldn't be a confounding variable. My sample was 61.9% Caucasian, and criteria for partaking in this survey was being female, being between the ages of 18 and 25, and living and having been born in the United States. And although this is not the only population that is subject to disordered eating, it is the population I chose to isolate for this study. So a little bit about the constructs that I measured. Mother and friend preoccupation with weight and dieting was a 9-item scale, and a few of the items were things like how often does your mother comment on your weight, or how often does your friend worry about what she eats. Objectified body consciousness is broken down into 3 subscales: body surveillance, body shame, and control beliefs. Body shame is the extent to which someone feels bad if their body does not meet cultural demands for women's bodies. Body surveillance is the extent to which someone views their body as an outside observer. And control beliefs are the beliefs that you have about whether you can control your own weight and your own appearance if you tried hard enough. Healthy weight control behaviors, this was just a list of items, and participants endorsed any or all that they had partaken in the past year. It included eating fruits and vegetables and exercising, as well as others. Unhealthy weight control behaviors were things like fasting, purging through the use of laxatives or vomiting, etc., or taking diet pills. Chronic dieting was defined as how many diets have you partaken in the past year, and people who had done 5 or more were coded as chronic dieters. Binge eating was characterized by one, having eaten an unhealthily large amount of food in the past year, one that most people would deem abnormal or abnormally large, having done so in a very short period of time, and having experienced the feeling of being out of control. So for my results, I didn't find a significant difference in the extent to which people rated their mothers or their friends as very preoccupied with weight and dieting. And that was, again, an exploratory hypothesis, so I didn't have a specific one ahead of time. In addition, addition, preoccupation with weight and dieting did predict the use of unhealthy weight control behaviors, but it did not predict the use of healthy weight control behaviors. So it did predict things like diet pills or purging. It didn't predict things like exercising or eating fruits and vegetables. And preoccupation with weight and dieting, so the extent to which someone rates their mother or their friend as preoccupied with weight, did predict people's own status as a binge eater and their status as a chronic dieter. Objectified body consciousness, and in particular the body surveillance and body shame subscales, was related in the expected ways to preoccupation with weight and dieting. And objectified body consciousness predicted engagement both in healthy and unhealthy weight control behaviors. In addition, it predicted status as a binge eater and a chronic dieter, so this really just affirmed its kind of relevance in the study of disordered eating. So based on study 1 going into study 2, I was again interested in whether or not I would find a difference between how people rated their mothers and how they rated their friends on preoccupation with weight and dieting. However, since the first study was a between subjects design and didn't really root out any differences, I thought maybe a within subjects design, so having the same participant rate both their mother and their friend on preoccupation with weight and dieting, might be a slightly more sensitive way of approaching that same topic. In addition, since I found what I expected when it came to body surveillance and body shame, I swapped these out for 2 different constructs that I thought might be relevant to disordered eating and had seen that in the literature, which were perfectionism and negative affect. And third, because preoccupation with weight and dieting did predict people's unhealthy weight control behaviors but not their healthy ones, my hypothesis for the second study was that I would find this again. Okay, I pretty much went over those. So the design of the study was the same as the first one. I was using mechanical Turk. I had 83 participants, but again, it was a within subjects design, so plenty of data to work with there. And I measured negative affect through the depression, anxiety, and stress scale, and I measured perfectionism with the Hewitt-Collette multi-dimensional perfectionism scale. So for this study, I again found that participants did not rate their mothers and their friends significantly differently on preoccupation with weight and dieting, and this was even when it was the same participant rating both. Indeed, I actually found a strongly positive correlation between the two, so in all of my analysis, I conducted them separately for mothers and for friends so that the multicollinearity wouldn't kind of give the variance in the entire, in all of the tests. In addition, I
50% complete, 7 minutes, 27 seconds left.
That was subtle. I found that negative affect did predict engagement in unhealthy weight control behaviors, binge eating, and chronic dieting. Oh, and marginally predicted engagement in chronic dieting. I didn't find the expected relationship between perfectionism and unhealthy weight control behaviors, binge eating, and chronic dieting. In fact, I found a negative correlation or a negative relationship between those two, meaning that people who were higher on perfectionism actually endorsed fewer of these, which is not what I expected. In addition, I did find that preoccupation with weight and dieting, negative affect, and perfectionism, none of these were related to healthy weight control behaviors, which kind of speaks to the normativity of healthy weight control behaviors. And I found that mothers and friends' preoccupation with weight and dieting did predict engagement in unhealthy weight control behaviors, chronic dieting, and binge eating, but only for friends, meaning that mother's preoccupation, this effect was not found. So to kind of wrap up, I found that the interpersonal variables of negative affect and objectified body consciousness, particularly the 2 subscales of body shame and body surveillance, were related in the expected ways to unhealthy weight control behavior, binge eating, and chronic dieting. I did not find the expected links between perfectionism and the use of unhealthy weight control behavior. And for future research, I'm really interested in focusing on the interpersonal variable of neuroticism, considering that this is in some ways a combination of things like depression, anxiety, stress, and also proneness to impulsive behavior that does seem to characterize many disordered eaters. As far as interpersonal variables go, what struck me as the most interesting about this study was that in the second study, I didn't find a relationship between mothers' preoccupation with weight and dieting, people's engagement in unhealthy weight control behavior, but I did find this relationship with friends. One of the hypotheses I had for why this might have occurred is that although in the literature mothers are often linked to their daughters' unhealthy weight control behavior, this is often in samples that are between the ages of 5 and 13, examples of people that are still living in their household. Whereas in this study, I was looking at women who were between 18 and 25 years old, who, even though their mothers might have played a significant role in how they treated their body, at this stage, perhaps their friends were a more important source of socialization. In addition, because I found that unhealthy weight control behavior was predicted by preoccupation with weight and dieting, but healthy weight control behavior wasn't, I'm wondering if this speaks to the fact that in my sample, about 90% of people endorsed at least one healthy weight control behavior, meaning most of the women said that they either exercised in the past year or ate more fruits and vegetables in an attempt to control their weight. So it might be that I do find in the future relationships between all of these inter and interpersonal variables and healthy weight control behavior, but it would have to be in a sample that was large enough to detect that effect. So that's all I have. If there are any questions.
Actually, I have a question. You said, okay, so you're talking about mothers and friends
Yeah.
and your preoccupation with it. I'm guessing the friends, maybe I missed it, were they just female as well?
Yes, participants were asked to think of a close female friend while answering all of the questions.
Do you think it would have affected if it was close male friends instead?
Yeah, definitely. I think that people's relationships with men or women's with men are still related in important ways to how they view their bodies, but there's probably less social comparison going